How's it going, guys? And welcome to the showdown between the Dark Elves led by MORATHI and the High Elves, who are going to be led by Benedict Cucumber Patch. So let's jump right into this match, guys, and have some fun. So in this game, I wanted to have a strategy that was very heavily focused around the Dark Shards. So in total, I do have 4 groups, and of course they do all have shield, which is very important in the High Elf matchup. But typically, if you bring like 1 or 2 Dark Shards, I feel like the High Elf missiles with their range, you can see here, the High Elf missiles have 180 compared to your 125. They're able to get a couple, really punishing volleys off before you get close. But if you bring a relatively overwhelming number of Dark Shards like I did here, you can see I have 4 groups and then also some spears protecting them. I feel like they can do a really good job against High Elves. So if they decide to go with Star Dragons, you can really burn them down with the solid armor-piercing values on the Dark Shards. If they decide to go traditional with White Lines and some regular archers and things like that, they can still put out some pretty good damage. So on top of that, we do have 3 groups of Dread Spears in the back, just going to be defending them. And Dread Spears are a very solid choice in this matchup, even as a frontline troop. So you can see I have 3 in the back, and then I think in total I have 3 in the front. And the reason why is because a lot of High Elf players are going to be using spears themselves. They'll just be using the regular spearmen, and sometimes you will see the White Lines, but White Lines don't cut through spearmen terribly quickly, especially considering they have relatively high melee defense. So you basically just use the Dread Spears to hold things in place and allow your Dark Shards to do the heavy lifting. On top of that, just to make sure I was safe in case you went because sometimes you do get people throwing you a curveball and bringing a very heavy build of, not Executioners, but what are they called? The Swordmasters of Hoeth or, Phoenix Guard or things like that. So I really wanted to be safe and just bring a couple elite infantry groups just in case. So I do have 2 Harganeth Executioners. On the far side, I do have a Hydra. So the Hydra is a very risky pick here. He has 50 armor, so if he's facing off against Lothran Sea Guard or regular archers, this guy can get burned down very quickly. But if they go with like an infantry Death Star, it's kind of something that just keeps your opponent honest. So the Hydra, if I'm careful and kind of keep him on the outskirts away from the archers, he should be able to put up a good fight against Dragon Princes. His breath attacks can do some work, and it's kind of a fun utility pick. And on top of that, we have MORATHI. So MORATHI is really good. I used to just think Malekith, and I still do think Malekith is probably one of the best, the more competitive choices in the game in general. The Gaze of Malice is very powerful. He has good spells at his disposal, solid armor-piercing values, but MORATHI kind of is good with other playstyles. She's very mobile, good at harassing, very good at sniping caster lords. So you have Teclis here, for example. If I'm able to isolate Teclis with her anti-large, her armor-piercing, and also her Doombolt ability, you can see here the wand of Caradarion or Caradon or something. I'm not even going to try. But this does a ton of damage against lightly armored targets. So if you hit Teclis straight on with this, it can bring him down to 50 or 60% easily. And then from there, she can do a ton of work. She's very mobile, 105 speed, has some good ability. Soul Stealer, Melkos is very, very good in this matchup for surpassing the physical resist of Dragon Princes and just kind of burning things down. And I just like her quite a bit in this matchup. So for my opponent, it looks like he has a bunch of archers in the front line, so he does have 4 archers. So if he's able to get his focus fire going on the Dark Shards before I get in range, that could be pretty scary, but oftentimes most people will just let them kind of shoot automatically in the beginning, and they'll be shooting at some Dread Spears, so we'll see how that goes. He's got a secondary line of Spearmen. He does have Ilthamar Chariots, which is just the standard chariot variation here without the bows, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, it's just the melee one. And this thing can do some heavy work against Dark Elves. If it gets on Black Orcs or Witch Elves, or not Black Orcs, the Black Ark Corsairs, just Black Orcs rocking over here. But if it gets on my infantry and even against the Harganeth, it can do some pretty heavy lifting. 4 groups of White Lines here, 2 Dragon Princes, and then of course Benedict. And Benedict has Nets, Flaming Sword, and the Flock of Doom. So without further ado, guys, let's get this show on the road. So MORATHI, I'm just kind of flying back and forth in front of his troops, just trying to get him to waste some ammunition, because if she's side strafing, it's pretty hard to hit her. But something I didn't notice is that he does have Benedict with the net, so of course I could have been punished really badly. If he had netted me there and just got all of these archers shooting, that could have been pretty scary. So here I do drop a Melkos, and it doesn't do the most damage, but it still does, a decent amount. Probably worth doing, about 10%. It also slows, but she has a lot of Winds of Magic because of the Power of Darkness, so I figured it'd be relatively safe to do that. In the meantime, just advancing with my Dread Spears, and they are taking quite a bit of fire from these archers, but this is great. This is exactly what I want, because that allows my Dark Shards to kind of just march forth and get ready to position and just do a ton of work. So over here, I do a Breath Attack. You can see it's going to be coming in and actually doing some decent damage against these guys. It's just a bummer, because had the Hydra used the Breath Attack in the middle of the formation, it would have just been devastating. But I find that whenever I use the breath attacks on these type of units, it always shoots on the edge of the formation, which is such a bummer unless they're just super blobbed up. So I'm going to be using my Dread Spears to come over here and support the Hydra. I figured that the Hydra with some spears kind of helping it out would be relatively safe, even though this is normally bad. I figured that these Dread Spears would take some of the damage. So in the front, you can see our troops are colliding. My Dread Spears are very beat up, so I'm probably going to lose this front line engagement pretty hard. You can see my opponent coming in with chariots, and it looks like one of them gets caught up. I think he was trying to get back to the Dark Shards here. But I do have ample troops in the back for defending. I have Dread Spears back here. I have some Harganeth Executioners. And you can see my opponent gets his Dragon Princes, and he sees an opening here. So this was a little bit scary, but I was able to reposition my Harganeth Executioners to intercept, and then also the Hydra. It's relatively immobile. I think it has 50 speed. Yeah, it looks like 46. So it should be able to, get around the battlefield relatively easily. So I get a couple kills on those Dragon Princes. The Hydra doing a good job in my Dark Shards, also pouring some very, very good fire in there. Not taking out a lot of models, but doing some very good HP damage. So if we take an overarch and look at the battlefield, check that out, that wand right there. The Wand of Kardarian, or whatever, we'll just call it the Wand of whatever. It does some pretty good damage to Teclis there, which I was very happy about because I noticed that at this point in the battle, I noticed that he did not bring regrowth. So any damage I do to him is going to be pretty substantial, although he probably does have the potion. I guess he doesn't. Interesting. So really, really just kind of cutting corners there on Benedict Cucumber Patch. So the Dragon Prince is here, getting popped by the Melkos Misfying Miasma, doing some pretty solid work, just slowing them down. My Dread Spears are able to intercept and protect the backline troops, and the Dark Shards, man, if they're able to turn and fire against armored targets, they just melt stuff. It's so much fun using them. And there's a multitude of styles of play you can use with the Dark Elves. You can go very heavy infantry with Harganeth and, the Blackguard and Nagaron, and then using a lot of Dark Riders to kind of harass the back line and go after archers. But I really do like that Dark Shard style of play. So over here you can see my 2 Dark Shards are relatively free. One group here, and once you do get in range of the High Elf archers, man, you can just put them in a trash can so hard. So we're just shooting in here, doing quite a bit of damage, and they're still at 60 models of their 68. But, oh man, some of these Dragon Princes unfortunately do get into the back line, so well played to my opponent. Finally escaping the clutches of my mighty War Hydra and getting into my goodies. And also his Chariot comes in, so just massive pound town going on. But thankfully I do have some Spheres back here. A full health group of Dread Spears who do have 3 chevrons, so that's going to be 27 melee attack, 44 melee defense. So they're going to be pushing forward and trying to intercept, but of course the Chariots, if my opponent is microing them correctly, can run through pretty aggressively and just chase me down. So the bounce bar relatively even at this point. My opponent does get a very good net on MORATHI here, and this was really stressful. You can see the net's about to wear off, but I'm taking a ton of firepower. Probably went down about 700 or 800 HP, if not 1,000 right there. So you can see as soon as the net wears off, I'm going to be grabbing MORATHI and just kind of running for the hills here. And the Chariots in the back still continuing to just kind of rain terror on the land. And I do have one group of Dark Shards here who's in 68 models. This one has 52, and then this one over here has 51. So relatively good health. Looks like a Flock of Doom will be going down for my opponent. Pretty good just catching both of those guys here. So on the far side, you can see some of these Dragon Princes do try and get through onto my Dark Shards, but the Dread Spears were thankfully able to kind of intercept them and stop them from getting through. So they know 18 models? Yeah, I think they have about 18 models, 500 HP. So the Dread Spears should be able to finish these guys off no problem. So in the back, it's a very wild, even battle at this point. Some of his archers are in pretty good shape. I mean, 68 models here, they're pretty much in perfect health, and they're just kind of withering down my Dark Shards in the back. But MORATHI is also doing very good with her anti-large bonus, and that's something a lot of people don't give her credit for. She's already rocking like close to 70 melee attack and 40 melee defense, which isn't bad for such a squishy character. And with that anti-large bonus, she can really be punishing against like things like Chariots and Dragon Princes, so I really think she has a strong niche in this matchup. So I'm just exchanging some fire here with my Dark Shards onto his archers, finally starting to whittle those guys down. But a lot of his white lines, who he did have an auxiliary, are now pushing through and getting into my back line. So this was very stressful. You can also see that a Soul Stealer is going to be going down right here, helping my, my Dread Spears fight these guys. And honestly, like I've said in, previous casts, I feel like white lines are one of those units that always underperform a little bit. Granted, I think that this is one of the matchups in which they're not bad, because white lines are very good against Blackheart Corsairs, who are, typically a pretty popular pick. So MORATHI's going to be landing in here. Obviously, I don't want to leave her here because the white lines do have pretty good, damage output. Although their martial prowess is gone and they're only at 34, but man, these Dark Shards are just tearing these guys apart. So you can see that these white lines, even with their missile resist, are just getting put down here. And it looks like MORATHI is going to be putting the Enchanting Beauty, so lowering their melee attack by 9, which is also something else that's very good about MORATHI. She has some pretty solid melee debuff. So these guys are just getting torn to shreds by the Dark Shards, and it looks like they're wavering. Maybe going to chase and get a couple more kills here, but the Dark Shards should be able to reform ranks, and I love their shooting animations. They're so darn cool. We're just tearing into these Spearmen and, just kind of forming a new battle line. So now that the battle is a little bit more developed and I was able to kind of secure my position back here, I have these 4 Dark Shards who, considering the state of the battle, are in okay health. And now I can kind of just march forward and hopefully wither down a lot of my opponent's troops. So here you can see Teclis, and look at that wand, just doing massive damage against Teclis, bringing him down to, 500 HP. But MORATHI's also netted here and taking some archer fire. So let's see, yeah, she has about 1100 HP. So man, if I can get out of this cage here and go after Benedict, that's going to be very, very punishing to my opponent. So I do pop a Soul Stealer, I think, and which is crazy because at this point in the game, still being able to cast a Soul Stealer, because she has 2 abilities that help with her Winds of Magic. She has the Spirit Leeching, which is the Winds of Death passive, so whenever you cast a spell, you get like a Winds of Magic recharge, which is pretty often, and it really synergizes very well with the Power of Darkness. And you can see that Benedict just gets spooked over there by MORATHI, who's just chasing and, man, doing a great job this game. But yeah, you can really spam a lot of magic, very similar to like Balthazar Gelt, in that you just constantly have this Winds of Magic coming in. So over here you can see the Hydra is just going to be chasing down these troops, and he did have a couple archers here, and this is a great pick. 52 archers here, 34 right here, and the fact that my Hydra, just with a group of very, tattered Harganeth executioners, was able to chase these guys, keep them off this very, very important fight over here, was just huge for me this game. So right now, I'm just trying to secure my position. He does have some spearmen getting through, which is a little bit rough. They only have 30. Oh, looks like they went to negative leadership for there for a moment. And Melkos is going to be going down, putting them down to 26 speed, which is going to allow my Dark Shards, who only have 33 speed, to get away. And you can see her steed. I wonder if it has a name. I know that Balthazar Geld's mount is called like Quicksilver, but I'm not sure what hers is called. So as soon as he like turns his focus, I just get all my Dark Shards and just pour that fire in there, just tearing them to shreds. You can see they're broken, and some of the white lines are probably going to advance here, but MORATHI should be able to work with these Dark Shards right here to do some pretty heavy lifting. And I did decide to use Power of Darkness here to get that Winds of Magic for more Melkos, but it does unfortunately break my Dark Shards here before they're able to put a little bit more pressure in. So right now I just have my firing line a little bit obstructed, but honestly I just wanted to turn and shoot. I feel like, you know, getting them in formation and spreading them out so they wouldn't be obstructed, I just didn't really have time for it there, so I'm just going to have to kind of kite and allow MORATHI to hunt down the archers. And of course I still have this Hydra, so despite the fact that he has a pretty healthy infantry core here, there's just not enough stopping power to get the Hydras. I mean, he has some archers over here, but really the Hydra plus MORATHI should be pretty spooky here. So she can see she's going to be karate chopping some of these high elf archers here, and they're going to be breaking. And honestly, my opponent's probably pretty close to army losses. So whenever you're being chased by like a big blob of infantry troops, something I would recommend is getting each group. So I get one Dark Shard here, one here, and one here. So I run them in a couple directions. And number one, it's going to kind of stress your opponent's micro. So if he's not paying attention to that and just kind of, you know, fighting over here and trying to get my Hydra, and he has all of them like pathing after your blob, you can get an opportunity to isolate and shoot just like I did here. So those white lines are going to go down. And now that this group is, you know, pretty much taken offline, my Dark Shards can rotate and start shooting at this other group who's chasing the other group of Dark Shards, and it's going to be a pretty good situation. So at that point, it's going to be army losses for the High Elves, and that's going to be all she wrote. So let's go ahead and take a look at the breakdown, guys. So yeah, the Dreadspears did their job. It's a pretty solid frontline choice. I mean, yeah, they're going to lose most of the matchups, but if you're using a very Dark Shard heavy build where they're going to be the bread and butter of your build, who are really punishing, and these guys did a really good job. I mean, they took out infantry. They were able to take out the Dragon Princes with MORATHI's help, and that's something that's really cool about MORATHI up in the air. If you get like Malekith on his dragon, he's a little bit slower. If he lands, he's going to be more committed because he's so big and can get surrounded. But MORATHI can kind of stick and move with Melkos, and having the Lore of Shadows to slow things down, it gives you a ton of utility on the battlefield. And of course, the Wand of Caradon? I have to take a look at that and get that right. But yeah, I felt like she was really solid, and I definitely look forward to using her in a couple more builds. But yeah, Hydra actually was a really good performer, and you wouldn't think it would be against High Elves, but if you play very conservatively with it, and as soon as it gets focus fired, you run it out of range and kind of just really on top of that, honestly, it doesn't seem like a terrible pick. So for my opponent, I definitely would have liked to see Regrowth. I feel like that would have been a better choice than the Flaming Sword of Ruin, because Regrowth would just be so good with Dragon Princes. Like, there was a couple very pivotal moments here with the Dragon Princes that, had they had a Regrowth, they could have been much more punishing. So I think that would be good. But aside from that, it was a pretty cool build, and just a close game all around. So very well played to my opponent. We'll just call him Zeus for short. Look forward to running into you again on ladder, and hopefully you guys enjoyed seeing MORATHI in action. Have an excellent night, guys, and take care.